Let's begin then. So, welcome everyone to the Reed and Christine Halladay Executive Lecture Series. I'm Dr. Eugene Seeley, Associate Dean for the Woodbury School of Business here at Utah Valley University. Our speaker today is Jerry L. Mills. Jerry founded B2B CFO in 1987. He is the pioneer of the 1099 CFO concept in industry. His unique ability is creating a future vision, a focused direction, and an honest process so all can enjoy a better lifestyle. He is the author of two books, The Danger Zone, Lost in the Growth Transition, and the book, Avoiding the Danger Zone, Business Illusions. He is frequently on television, on Fox Business News, Morningstar, Wells Fargo webcasts, etc. In late 2011, he was awarded in New York City as one of the top 100 small business influencers in North America by the organization Small Business Trends and Small Business Technology. He and the firm are documented as experts in their field in the book, The Wall Street Journal Complete Small Business Guidebook. So please join me in welcoming Jerry L. Mills.
Well, good morning. Yeah, can you hear me okay? Good to be here. Do I have anybody here from my company? Okay, I want you to have David Bitter from Orem and Don Lumbaum from Park City. I just want to recognize, there's two partners of my firm. I want to recognize them. I also want to recognize Anya Kubicki in the front row. Anya, if you'd stand up. Anya is the president of Angles Public Relations, and she's the one who arranges these things, and she's one of the brightest people I've ever met. So really grateful to be here. I showed my wife, it seems like it wasn't that long ago that we were starving students together at Arizona State University, and I showed her this presentation. And her only comment was, I wish somebody would have told us these things when we were that age. We could have done better. And so this presentation is about you. I'm very grateful for the university for inviting me here. I'm going to go through a few things about my company just as a way of background. We're going to end my comments by 12:40, and we'll have 10 minutes for Q&A. And then a lot of you have to go to class at 12:50. So if you have questions, just write them down. And I have blue eyes. I can't really see you very well. So we'll have Anya pick out the questions. Is that okay? Because she can see better than me. This is our logo. This is how we brand ourselves. If you're going to go into marketing classes or business classes, any company that's good at what they do can identify to the community, business community, in 4 or 5 to 6 steps what they do. And this is on the homepage of our website. This is our growth in terms of partners like Don and David. In 2003, you can see there were 4 of us. Today there's 220, and these are the goals that we have going forward. And this is where we're at nationally. So again, 10 years ago, there were just a few of us in one state, and you can see where we're at today. This is, not trying to brag, but this is just a few of the publications that have reported on us and done press and TV about our firm during the past little while. And if you're running a business, you want to make sure that you get a lot of presence. Next week we'll be at the Inc. 500, 5000 Awards. We're honorees of that award 3 years in a row as one of America's fastest growing companies. This is a photo with, on your right, Bob LaPointe, who's the CEO of Inc. magazine. The pretty woman in the middle is my wife, Christine. We met in high school when we were 16, and we've been married. We got married when we were 21. She's the joy of my life. One of the interesting things about our company is we've grown to the point where we not only receive all these awards, but we also now have our own awards program. So if you go to our website to www.smart25awards.com, you'll actually see that we now give out awards for companies that might not otherwise get them. One of the companies that Fishbowl is actually, I believe, in your community. Is that right? And so they're one of our honorees. If you go to their office, you'll see our award proudly shown in their company. I've written 2 books. I have a 3rd book coming out that's supposed to go to the press January 15th, and it's about exit strategies and how to help companies go from A to Z to sell their businesses. I am now on the 18th of the 20 top books on the subjects that I've read, and I feel, speaking humbly, that my book will be the best book in the nation on this subject. I've done enough homework to know that. What I want to do is I want to talk about you. So that's enough about me. You can go on the website, and the rest of it's sort of boring. Let's talk about you. And what I want to do is I want to ask you to ask yourself, what is your future like? What are you going to do? How are you going to be successful? And how are you going to achieve those things that you want to achieve? And what I've learned, ladies and gentlemen, that a lot of that depends on who you listen to and who you emulate. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I prepared this lecture. I know it's going to be shown on YouTube and on the university's website, but I've actually prepared this lecture so that long after you forget about me, you're going to have 3 books that I want you to buy, I want you to have in your library, and I want you to keep for the rest of your lives, okay? And if you read those 3 books, you'll not only increase your success, the probability degree of your success, but you'll also just remember this lecture. First, I want to tell you there's nothing wrong with being in the 1%, okay? By the way, who knows what is when people are protesting against the 1%ers? What's the income, the bottom income that 1%ers earn? Who knows that? We have all these college students that protest about them, but most don't know how much money it is. Okay, 250, a little higher. 357,000. Okay, that puts you in the 1%, which, by the way, in today's economy is not very much money. That's sort of a pittance. Nothing wrong with aspiring to be in the 1%. If you get there and you don't like the money, well, guess what? You can go on websites. There are women in Africa that spend 4 hours going one way with a bowl or pot on their head, getting water for their family to drink. So they go 4 hours one way, 4 hours the other way. You can contribute money to them. Maybe you could help them build a well in their village and improve their lives. So you don't have to have the money. You can give it out. It's not big of a deal. This is something you might want to research on this topic. The phrase 99%ers was actually stolen from Poland. If you go back, August 31st, 1980 is when they started their 99%, although it was 180 degrees different from what our 99%ers are, which are mostly losers, and you don't want to be one of them, okay? They add no value. They don't understand economic principles, of which I'm going to try to teach you today. I want to talk briefly about past presidents of the United States of America. John Kennedy said in the early 60s that we're going to send a man to the moon. And that seemed like an impossible goal, but he said that's what we're going to do, and that's what we did. And he inspired generations. President Reagan, I wasn't much older than you, probably about your age, when he came out and said that it is morning in America. And I can't tell you how much that inspired me. And I felt like the future had no bounds because of this president. Now today we have administrators at the highest level who are telling you that you can't do it. You can't do what past generations have done. That if you go to college and you work hard, the best opportunity you have is to be in the middle class. And I'm here to tell you that they're lying. They're not telling you the truth, and you should not listen to them. The same economic principles that have created successful men and women since the founding of our country still exist. And there's actually more opportunities than have existed during these times of past presidents. So don't listen to them. They're lying to you. This is a house that I grew up in, if you want to call it a house. It's a cabin. It had no running water. That meant we had an outhouse in the back. We had no bathroom. When I wanted to take a bath, which was I'm sort of a clean person. I got one a week in the backyard, even when it was snowing like this. And it was always secondhand water because my younger brother, who was always filthy, got to bathe first. So for years, my weekly bath was secondhand water. Here's the picture of my brother, Paul, Dean, and me. I think I'm 6 or so at that age. And at this point, just briefly, this was the 4th household we had lived with since he was born. Four different families. My father, and I never saw my mother after this photo. I was told my father had, and my mother, I was told, had 9th grade educations. My stepmother, I think, had 8th grade education. Most of the men and women that I associated with and knew as a child, they were lucky to have 7th or 8th grade educations, okay? So here I am, very poor. What was expected of me was possibly go to high school, okay, and then go into the military. That was what was expected. That was my future. I didn't know anybody successful. I didn't know how to be successful. Fortunately, in 6th grade, I had a teacher, Mrs. Elliott, who challenged me. She said, Jerry, you have an above average IQ. You're a smart guy. I want you to read a lot of books. So in 6th grade, I read 100 books. And I read about the heroes in the past, our founding fathers, Lewis and Clark, Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, Jim Bridger, and I started reading about successful people. I also read almost all as a 7th grader, I read almost all the works of Shakespeare and all the works of Edgar Allan Poe. And I found out at a very young age that man was deranged. There was something mentally wrong with him. Very scary. So what happened was my future started changing, not because of my environment. I actually outgrew my environment. My future started changing because I started reading and learning, and I wasn't just quickly going through the books so I could say I read a book. I mean, I was studying, and I'd go back and read the chapters. Well, Davy Crockett did this, and Jim Bowie did this, and George Washington did, and President Lincoln did that, okay? And I was studying them, trying to figure out what they were doing. And I can tell you that year, our Christmas present, and I'm not complaining about it because I was very, very grateful. We both got 2 pairs of new socks, white socks. And it was such a blessing not to put on our shoes, especially our galoshes when we went out in the snow. As you can see from this, you can see the icicles. And it was such a blessing to not have holes in our socks. Okay, so I was very grateful. But I had no vision of a future, but it was other people who taught me. And what I want to do is do the same thing for you, maybe not so much through my actions or words, but by introducing you to some important books. And what I want to do is I want to introduce you to these 3 books. I want to talk briefly about them. Again, I highly encourage you to buy them, have them in your library, and study them for the rest of your careers. The first book, Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers, in chapter 2, talks about the 10,000-hour rule. Okay, and does anybody here have any of you studied that? And does anybody know what the 10,000-hour rule is? Show of hands. Does anybody know this young lady? What is the 10,000-hour rule? Okay, so she said you can be incredibly proficient in anything if you put enough time into it. Is that what you said? Okay. Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Glad somebody knows that concept, because it's very true. The 10,000-hour rule, here's what's said about that in Malcolm Gladwell's book. And he has studies from a lot of successful people. He says, what's more, the people that are at the very top don't just work harder and even much harder than everyone else. They work much, much harder. And that's true. If you want to be at the top, if you want to be the expert in your industry, in your profession, you have to work harder than everybody else. Doesn't matter what your IQ is. You can be getting C's, B's, or A's. It doesn't matter. Are you guys, you're pretty young, are you familiar with a group called the Beatles? Have any of you heard of them? Is that a yes? Okay. Well, the Beatles were a subpar group in Liverpool. And in 1957, somebody, Brian Epstein or somebody, got a gig for them in Hamburg, Germany. Okay, and here's what John Lennon said about that. He said in Liverpool, we'd only ever done 1-hour sessions, and we just used to do our best numbers and the same ones every night. In Hamburg, we had to play for 8 hours, so we really had to find a new way of playing. So what happened was the Beatles they were just a group of young men, not very good at what they did, some innate talent, but they hadn't put in the time. So they go to Hamburg for several years, put in 8 hours a day, 7 hours a week, and they come back musicians. Not a band, but musicians, proficient in what they're doing. You've heard of Bill Gates. Here's what he said while he was going to college at the University of Washington. He said, I'd leave at night after my bedtime. I would walk to the University of Washington from my house, or I'd take a bus. And what he would do all night was he would program. And he put in his 10,000 hours. And then we had the situation where the definition of luck, which is when opportunity and preparedness met. So when he saw DOS, he was prepared, he understood it because he was a programmer, not because he wanted to be, it's because he had a passion for it. He didn't think, well, this is possibly a good job. Here's a young man who just worked all night, and you can go back and read. His mother thought he was a lazy bum because she couldn't wake him up in the morning to get him up and go to school. Well, he had been programming for 8 hours, okay? And here's someone who understood that principle. That principle applies for all disciplines. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's music or sports or any discipline, it applies for all disciplines. If you think back over the Olympics that we just had, most of you remember watching swimming or running, there seemed a lot of times a large gap between. And you wonder, how did this happen? How did these people even get in the Olympics? Well, for the most part, the people that were running or swimming or doing whatever they're doing had pretty much the same talent. But if you go back and study them, the ones that were first, second, and third place put in more time. Now, someone could say, well, that's not fair because somebody paid their way, whatever. Well, life's not fair. You just have to find the time to do it. And if you're like Bill Gates, where you go to school all day, you get up at 10 o'clock at night, and you study and work until 6 or 7 in the morning and start that cycle over for several years, that's what it takes. There's no shortcut. On the 10,000 hour, the key is to find a passion and spend about 10,000 hours becoming a world-class expert. If you put in that kind of time, you're going to become world-class at what you do. And here's the interesting part. Once you do that, the world, and you don't need to worry about how this happens, it just happens. The world will recognize you, and then they will pay you a lot of money, okay? And then you'll go speak, and you'll have protesters outside because you're part of the 1%. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, so don't worry about how you're going to get paid. It just works. Okay, just trust me on that. In finishing this up, the issue is, well, Jerry, if I put 10,000 hours into something after I graduate from college, that's a lot of sacrifice. I'm going to have to give up a lot of stuff, dates or whatever you guys do for fun, tweeting or whatever. Well, if you're going to be world-class at something and successful at something, you're going to have to make the sacrifice. And it's a lot easier doing it when you're younger than it is when you're older and you may be married and have children and have obligations and mortgages and things like that. So you're going to sacrifice one way or the other. The sacrifice, if you don't do it, will be that you'll have children and you can't provide for them the way you want to. You can't buy them the gifts and the clothes. You'll have a spouse, like my beautiful wife. You won't be able to buy her the latest dress that she deserves to have. There'll be some sacrifice. It's just a matter of when you're going to make it. Okay. I'm going to change the subject. So go buy that book. Study chapter 2 and also the entire book. I'm not going to say much more about it. Those are just true principles. Inbound marketing. This is a book by the guys at HubSpot. If you talk to your parents and grandparents, they'll tell you that when they were your age, all advertising was outbound, meaning that there were 3 major networks. There were newspapers, there were things like Sears Roebuck catalog and things like that, and that's how they got what they wanted. Okay, things have changed where now advertisers are starting to move what's called inbound. okay? And that's why ABC, CBS, and NBC, their viewership is going down. That's why in the next few years you're going to see catastrophic effects to the newspaper industry. And they may even in the next 5 or 6 years become obsolete because of this concept of inbound marketing. Now, let me tell you from practical experience how we use this. This, again, is a history of the growth of our company. And we've grown by inbound marketing, okay? And these are some key stats, and you can see in August last month we were blowing things off the chart. So we're using these principles that I'm talking about. Now, I just want to briefly talk about 4 principles. These are things that if you want to look good with your professors and I'm going to teach some things you don't know. I'm going to teach you some things you know and some things you don't. First, in terms of a website, this is our what people call it our website, but it's really not a website. It's called a network that has portals in it. And to study that concept, you can get a very easy view of that if you go to Gap.com, OldNavy.com, Sears.com, Kmart.com. You can get a better view of what a network and what portals are. Okay, and so we have converted to portals and networking in our company. One of the significant things about that, and one reason that our stats are going off the chart, is when we had a website, of which probably 99.8% of companies that you see on Google and other things have websites, we would have we had the typical bounce rate, which is about 60%. Since we went to a network about 1.5 years ago, our bounce rate is less than 2%. That means that 98% of people who visit our website stay there. Okay, that's significant. Okay, so we've moved from 40% staying to 98%, and that's one reason why we're growing, and that's because of these concepts. I want to talk to you a little bit about search engine marketing and search engine optimization on Google. This is putting in a keyword. You can see there's about 8.9 million results on this keyword. On the top part, this is one of our small competitors. I think they have 9, so they're about 96% smaller than we are. They're actually trying to compete with us on what's called SEM, search engine marketing, and some people call it pay-per-click, okay, and there's a science to that. You can see that, on the organic side, that we're in 2 spots. We have not only, the 10 top spots on the organic on this keyword, we own the top 2 spots, and we're pushing people to our website and also to what's called a landing page. That second one is a landing page, okay? And that's a concept. If you're not familiar with it, you want to get familiar with the concept of landing pages, because just going to somebody's homepage today is sort of, well, it's arcane, okay? Now, do you know? Have you studied this or been taught? When you go to Google or other search engines, Yahoo, Bing, Ask.com, that kind of stuff. What is the percentage of clicks that people click on organic versus non-organic or SEM or PPC? Do you roughly know what the percentages are? 60%. Did I hear 60? That's on the low end. It's usually about 70% on average on Google. Other engines actually have a higher percentage. And so the advantage, obviously, of being in an organic position is you have a 70% chance of being viewed by somebody. And you can test this yourself when you're going on and looking at things. You'll find that you go mostly on the organic, and you try to avoid the pay-per-click or the SEM. And the main reason is, as a human being, you feel like that company's trying to sell you something, right? And so you want to go to the authority. You want to be an authority. Now, this is interesting. Here's another key word. But you can see that we dropped down from the previous one from 8.9 million results to 1 point, whatever that is, 4. I can't see it. We have more competitors competing against us, small companies on PPC, SEM. And you can see that we're number 1 on this organically. And you can see also on this one, we are not sending people to our homepage. We're sending people to a specialized landing page. Okay. And again, if you buy the book, Inbound Marketing, they'll teach you the differences. Now, this one is really interesting. This keyword has 48 million hits. You can see that we have people competing against this. Now, here's what's interesting on this SEM. None of these companies are our competition, okay? And you can see that Indeed.com has a number 1 position. We have a number 2, and Monster.com has number 3. When you graduate, you'll get familiar with these, Indeed and Monster. They're huge. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, okay, Google has something like 500 algorithms, and when you're going through this, in terms of business and inbound marketing, is it better to be number 2 organically on something that has 48 million results, or number 1 organically on something that has 1.4 million results? So you go through those gyrations and those calculations, and we're experts at this. This is what we do. You also have to do other social media. Here I am with my beautiful wife on LinkedIn, which is critical, Twitter, Facebook, and we actually now have our own news website. And if you go there, you'll see my TV appearances, the press release. There was just a major one on the 6th of this month, announcing a partnership with us and Morgan Stanley Smith Barney. So we have so much news that we've had to create our own news website. So this is the future, ladies and gentlemen. Twitter, Facebook, and those things didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. New technology will be developed, obviously. And if you want a good career path, if you want to add value to employers, if you want to be on the cutting edge, you'll learn something about this. I'm not saying you need to invest your 10,000 hours. I'm just saying that this is where things are going. And I pay some of my people 6 figures that are on my payroll to help me with this stuff. Okay, so. And they have total job security. I'd let go of everybody before I let go of them. Changing the subject to another book, the 3rd book I'm recommending. Jim Collins, several years ago, wrote this book, Good to Great. It's one of the best books ever written, and you ought to read it, even if you don't read it in terms of the subject matter that I'm teaching. You want to read it because it'll help you define the type of company that you might want to work for in the future. It'll help you know how to distinguish really good companies that have good core values versus those that don't. We're talking about core competencies and so forth. Now, Jim's book, he talks a lot about core ideology, and he does an outstanding job about that. Now, in my first book that I wrote, I quoted him, but I took a different twist to it, and I talked more about core values. There's a difference between core ideology and core values. A value is just a value. You're either honest or you're not. You either have integrity in what you do or you don't. You either treat people well or you're a jerk and you don't. Okay, so those are some of the core values. Not all of them. There's a long list. Now, how does that apply to you? Are any of you familiar with this controversy? This was from Time Magazine just 17 days ago. Are you familiar with this controversy of the cheating at Harvard? Have you been reading about that kind of stuff? It's quite a scandal. I believe the captain of the basketball team had to resign from the team, and it's caught a lot of people's attention. Now, in the same magazine, a study showed that from Rutgers that over 2010, 2011, 62% of the students cheated while they're in school. Okay. Now, that number would be horrible if it was 6.2%. It would be horrible. 62%, that means something's wrong. Something is wrong. Okay. And you don't want to do that. And I'm explaining a little bit why. I'm going to give you some business reasons why, as I have some real legitimate business reasons. I'm just going to talk theory to you. So, cheating is not something you want to do. If you go back to what I talked about earlier on the 10,000-hour rule from Malcolm Gladwell, if you become world-class at what you do, you don't need to cheat because you're the authority, right? And people actually then start copying you. Let me give you some business examples that will help out, and actually one of them is here in your local community. Now, when you go to work, either for yourself or employers, because we're going high-tech, there are things that employers need to protect, and these are all different things. And if you haven't studied them, but you have an opportunity with one of your classes, one of your papers, you might want to write about the difference between these things. These things are critical. And for my company, most companies, if you lose, if people steal these things, you can actually go out of business and lose everything that you have. Now, what does that mean outside of just theory? This is actually outdated. As of last night, we have, in the last 24 months, we've had 108 companies steal from our website, okay, because we are the authority, right? We put in the 10,000 hours. And what they do is they steal complete pages, even though each page has a copyright on it, okay? They even steal our name, which is a registered trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, okay? And they're from all over the world. The guy we caught last night is from Canada. He tried to hide who he was and who is, and he didn't put his name on his website. Well, guess what? Through social media, it took me just a few minutes to find out where he is, his photo, his name, his home address. I found everything, and then we sent a cease and desist. The company right before this happened last week, and it's a very polite-sounding group from England. Of course, they're not very polite if they're stealing from us, but and we've caught people all over the world, of course, in the United States, New Zealand, Australia. We had 3 senior-level executives that had to retire from the company. They were from Singapore, Hong Kong, and someplace in Taiwan. Brazil, Russia, France, Spain, all over the world. Okay, so what's happening is because we're the authority, we have a target on our back, people just assume they can steal from us. Now, how do we catch them? How do we catch them? That would be one of the questions you might want to ask, because I'm not going to cover that right now. What I want to do is I want to throw out a term that you may not be aware of, and this may be something that you can write about to impress one of your professors if the subject matter comes up. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act is an international law. Okay, and so we, on these people who steal from our website, we actually don't have to sue them. We can just turn them over to the DMCA. The DMCA has a lot of power. They can fine people up to $100,000. And what I like about it is they just shut down the website. They just shut them down. And of the 108 now companies that have stolen from us, about a third of them have had their website just permanently shut down. Okay. So this is something that's new. It's cutting edge in terms of where we're going with social media. And if you don't know about the DMCA and you want to look good in front of your professor, it might be a subject you want to study. It's like this. So this current, I'd encourage you to go to the Time magazine, check it out in your library, and read this article on what's happening with Harvard and Rutgers and other things. And I would just highly encourage you to to make up your mind to do things the right way, to not cheat, not be dishonest. I'd encourage you to live your life as best as you can. I can tell you from being around successful people and non-successful people over a long career, those that smoke cigarettes, those that smoke marijuana, those who drink heavily, those who are sexually promiscuous and get STDs, they end up punished severely, one way or the other. Physically, they lose their jobs. Mentally, they have families leave them. So what you want to do is, okay, what are my core values? And if somebody at UVU or anybody, after you get off work, attempts me or invites me to cheat or do something wrong, how am I going to react? What you want to do is make up your mind in advance. I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. Okay. Now, a recap of this lecture, because we're about out of time, at 2 minutes. We talked about the 10,000-hour rule and dedicating yourself to become a world class at something that the world needs. Social media, that's the wave of the future in terms of what we talked about, networking portals, LinkedIn, and the whole genre of social media. And then have core values. And here's what you want to do. Don't take any shortcuts. Never take a shortcut. It's not worth it. It's going to catch up to you. Put in your time. If you feel like you're abused because everybody else is taking shortcuts, well, they're shooting themselves in the foot. They may look good in the moment because they get a good grade or they get a promotion or some recognition, but the world will eventually honor you. Okay. Again, these are the 3 books that I recommend, and I have 1 minute before we do Q&A if you have any questions. If you look at UVU and all the universities that are in the United States and all the thousands of subjects that are taught, for your future success in business, there's one subject that is more important than any other subject, that will get you ahead in life better and faster than any other subject. Now, do you guys know what that is? One subject. Of all the thousands that are taught in all the universities, there's one subject that will get you ahead faster and better than any other subject. The hand over here.
Interpersonal communication.
Interpersonal communications. You're leaning there. Not the right answer, but you're leaning there. One subject it's in your syllabus. You see it all the time. Any idea? Oh. Up here? Pardon? Ethics. Okay, ethics are important. You can't succeed in the long run without ethics. Well, because my time is up and we need to do Q&A, and I'm going to call on Anya to come up and point to you because I can hardly see you. English. English is the most important subject you can learn. All right? English. All people, you could look at your university, the people that are at the top, the leaders, are good at English grammar. I'm not saying you have to know how to conjugate and do all the stupid things, that your teachers teach. But those who are at the top of the CEOs, those of us who are CEOs, when we promote people, we want to be around people, and we want to be around people that can articulate and enunciate and understand the English grammar. So if you go back just quickly to that photo of Paul, Dean, and me when we're on these poor little two kids, I never in a million years dreamt that I would be on television and that I would be an author of several books and I would be doing all the things I'm doing. Well, how did I do that? With parents, one with an 8th grade education and one with a 9th grade education. Well, I did that because I read voraciously since 7th grade, and I have continued to do that. And now I wish somebody would have told me that when I was in high school and college. Okay, I learned later about that. So if you want to excel in anything, what you want to do is focus on English. If you've sort of just gone through the class, you want to take it again. If you're about to graduate and you have some softness in your schedule, you want to take some of those and learn also interpersonal skills and ethics and those kind of things. So my time is up. We have now time, a few minutes for Q&A. So Anya, if you have any, Anya's going to point you out and you can ask your questions.
Where did you say you were from?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Is that where you grew up?
No, I was born in Huntington Beach, California. We lived in California, state of Washington, Arizona, and I grew up most of my young adult life in a small town called Safford, Arizona, which is sort of the armpit of the world.
What caused you, I guess, to be so motivated? Was it more in the sense of your upbringing, or was it just luck specifically? I know that a lot of CEOs say that careers in life is the right time sometimes, but what would be
That is an incredibly great question. No, when I was growing up, I was told every other sentence that I was stupid. All right? That was my life. I was stupid. And it wasn't until Mrs. Elliott, my 7th grade teacher, told me, no, you have a really high IQ. And then when I started reading about other successful people, it somehow ingrained in me this desire to be like them. So it had nothing to do with my upbringing at all. In fact, my wife, when we go to family reunions, occasionally we'll be there for a day or so and we'll leave and she'll ask, how are you sure you're part of that family? And it's not that I'm better than them, I just don't talk like them. And none of them have had this desire. So I think that desire was born of reading about other successful people and wanting to be like them. And I really didn't even care about the money. Of course, money's nice, pay a lot of income taxes. But I didn't care about the money. So the desire came from reading about successful people and just wanting to be like them. It's as simple as that. Over here.
What was your degree in college?
My degree was accounting, and I still am a CPA. I wanted to work for a Big 8 firm, and I got a job with Arthur Andersen. I was an experienced manager, And actually, that's where I developed this concept of B2B CFO, which I launched in 1987. And I found out that I did not like accounting and auditing and that kind of stuff. But sometimes you don't find those things out till you graduate. I'm still very grateful. I have a degree from Arizona State University. It's always done well for me. But so I'm a CEO by trade, by background. I have an accounting degree.
You had a question in the middle there, yes.
Yes. What's your favorite non-business book? Like you say you like reading about successful people.
Yes, yes. Well, my favorite non-business book was written in 1910, published in 1910. It's a very small book by James Allen, an Englishman. It's called As a Man Thinketh. I read that probably every 2 or 3 weeks. That's probably because what he does is he talks about the laws of thought and how thought works, both in terms of circumstances and environment and that kind of stuff. So I think this little booklet, As a Man Thinketh, is probably my favorite all-time book. I know that a small book may not. I've read thousands of books, and that's my favorite. So. Anybody have any others?
I have another one, sorry. With your life, though, so in your daily routine, I think obviously we're creatures of habit, and it sounds like you do a lot of things externally, so you can read a lot, you do things like that. What would you say like your average day would be for you?
Oh, you mean my working day?
Well, not necessarily like your working day, but like what other things do you put in your schedule that you probably wouldn't normally have done that's true?
Okay. Well, I can tell you since I've been in business, and you saw that growth, my working day probably starts at 7 and ends usually around 8:30 or 9 at night. That's my working day. And what I try to do is help the people in my business grow and make money. And then my other passion besides my wife and children and grandchildren is just learning. So I'm constantly reading. If you go in my office right now, there's 20 books that you'll see marked up, and I've read 18 of those 20 books. I'm a voracious reader. I'm not a speed reader. So I'm also somewhat high-tech, even though I don't know where that gift came from. So I try to learn a lot about technology, what's happening in the world, of some of the concepts I'll talk to you today. So I really don't have a normal day. They're all abnormal. But usually I'm talking to people, motivating them, doing things to help them, like writing this new book that I'm writing, and just working my butt off and working harder than anybody. Even at my age, there's nobody that I know that can outwork me. Okay. And that's the key to success. It's also key to having fun. I mean, why not just have fun, right? Well, it looks like my time is up. I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too. So.
Well, thanks. You're taking it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
See you next week.